Okay, hello. Today we are presenting content with the title of Creating Effective Responses to Government Solicitations. And I am joined today with Lauren Apone from NCMS, a really great partner to DATC in our solicitations. So, Lauren, welcome. Are you ready to get going today?
Yeah, Steve, let's get started.
Terrific. Okay, so I wanted to just spend a brief second talking about why we've created this content. And essentially, it's content that we are targeting to our new members and also to our longer-standing members who may have questions about our solicitations, and to ensure that they are up to speed on some of the processes that are involved, so they are well equipped when we have solicitations available. We've hosted this training a couple of times with our members and are making this session available for members going forward. So real quick on our agenda for today, it's fairly straightforward. We're going to talk briefly about our objectives for the session and then go into our two primary sections. One is on the solicitation processes and then on the solicitation responses. So I thought it would be important to communicate a key DATC goal for the consortium, and that's to provide strong solutions to government projects. And we do this by being on point and on time. And just what does that mean briefly? In our minds, that is being able to provide the right technical solution, the right proposal, the right teaming if necessary, and to have it all done on time. So it's really important to have the right message to the government and what we're communicating to them, but also DATC has worked diligently to ensure that we have strong processes and tools in place to help our members to be on time. So we are seeking our members' participation, in these areas because we have oftentimes really tight time frames for responses. We do consider our members the experts at the technical content, so that is where you have your chance to shine. I do want to make a quick note that at any point when you're a member, if you see opportunities for process improvements in what we have as far as our process goes, please communicate that to us because we would love to share the relevant ideas as we continue to improve our processes. So keeping moving forward here, our objectives, again, we understand that our members and anyone who participates in this session in the past or in the future comes with varying levels of understanding what our processes are and what the elements are. So some of the content may be review, some of it may be something that's new. We think for any of our members, they will gain some additional knowledge that they didn't have before. So some of it's, again, level setting across the board for our members. These are knowledge-based objectives. So you will walk out of the session with having a better understanding of the solicitation processes as far as the components of our request for white papers and request for project proposals. And of course, we will cover some of the best practices for preparing and responding to these solicitations and give some ideas of what you can do on your end to improve what you're doing to respond to these. Okay, moving forward. You've probably seen this before, but if you haven't, this is a high-level value stream that I like to share because it's a good representation of the players that are in the process, from again the government customer through to the member and everyone in between, as far as these entities who are looking to support these government projects. As you see, GVSC is a big part of the process, and they determine whether a project is a good fit for DATC, and if so, they continue with the project through to the acquisition services team, and then it moves on over to DATC, and we make those project solicitations available to our members. So again, this is just a high-level look at how a project goes from a customer to our members. And again, we are all working together, ideally in a very collaborative way, so we can get the best solutions, again, to the customer. Here we have adding a little more detail to the process. So here we have a 10-step representation of a project process that goes from step 1, where a project is identified, all the way through to step 10, where a project is awarded to a member. And in between, and what we're going to focus on, mostly through our session here, is what we have highlighted here in red, which is the solicitation processes. Because in our standard process, and something that a scenario that we look to see in most cases is a request for white paper. So, and then with the request for white paper scenario, there is a down select to a request for project proposal, and then on through to award. And this current process, this step 1 to step 10, has a current target time frame of 150 days. So from the time that a project is in step 1 through the time of a project award, we currently on paper are targeting to have that completed within, again, 150 days. So for some of you, that may be a pretty tight time frame. So we do have expectations for your participation and getting your part of the process done quickly. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So again, I've been talking about the request for white papers and request for project proposals a bit so far, but just so we're on the same page, the request for white papers, when the government has and chooses to go with that route, that's because they do not have a firm statement of work in place, and they're looking for industry's help to shape that statement of work. So that's again, that's the type that when we set up our OTA with the government, that we were expecting to see a lot of, because we I guess the expectation was that there was going to be a lot of opportunity for a large subset of our members to provide ideas to the government. And the best way, the most streamlined way, without a lot of additional work, is through the request for white papers. It's a simpler format. There's not as much involved with the cost proposal and all that's involved in that. So we hope and expect to see a lot of requests for white papers in the DATC consortium. So the other part is the request for project proposals, where the statement of work is solidified, and if that's the case, we have seen some of these types come through. They have a different time frame for response, but again, the statement of work is already solidified. The government's not looking for that, but again, I just wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page as far as what the expectation is with these solicitation types. So here is a table that we make available to our members on at least a monthly basis in our project pipeline report that's made available. This is where we identify the projects, where they stand in the solicitation stages, and just we give a little bit about the project as far as value, period of performance, target time frame. We talk about the type of solicitation. You'll see that in the second table there, the type of solicitation and whether it's open or closed and where that stands. So our recommendation is to ensure that you get very familiar with the project pipeline report that we make available, and to see where you might want to participate in these solicitations as they come out, or for current projects that are already awarded, there may be opportunity to participate, and you can use this as a resource to identify potential opportunities. So I recommend for all members, particularly if you're new, to get very familiar with this report and understand where you can find value. Also, we have introduced a project teaming table. It's a fairly simple report or table that we make available to our members. If you are interested in any of our projects that we have they can be awarded, or they can still be in the pipeline for solicitation. If you have interest, if you hear about it and it's of interest to your company, you have expertise, let us know. We can put this on, put your company name on the table, and we make this available monthly to our members as well. And this would be it's a good communication for potential subcontractors who want to communicate for other potential team members or primes that are looking for additional capabilities for proposals that may be upcoming. And lastly, just want to make a note, if you want to be added to this, when you see the report, it does give instructions, but briefly I'll just say send me an email with the project, and let me know that you want to be part of that project or on this table, and we can add you to that list. So I just wanted to communicate when a solicitation is released. It is released from the DATC request at sae-itc.org email address. And when that is released, we release all the documents that you need to respond to that solicitation. So, and that's all included in that in an email that we send out. We provide you instructions on how to submit responses. And also, if you have any questions, you can also reply to that email address. So I do want to say, if you are not receiving the solicitations, and you should be, please let us know. We have a list of who receives that, and typically it's our point of contact for each member. But we also have an additional list of communication distribution. We add additional names beyond our two main points of contact for a member. So if you have additional people at your company you want to receive, we can send those people this distribution as well. So let us know if you're not seeing what you expect to see with these solicitations. Okay, I just have a couple more slides. Here's another table that we share in our monthly project pipeline report. And what I wanted to mention here is, particularly on the second part where it lists the RWPs and RFPPs, this is a list of how many types have come through as that. So here we have, for RWPs, we've had 7 projects come through in that way with 41 responses. So it's our goal to have as many responses as possible for each of our solicitations. So this is just a way for you to track to see how many on average we get for each type. So that can give you at least some intelligence about the process. Again, we like to increase that ratio as much as possible because the more ideas, the better from our members to the government. Whoops. The last slide I have, each of our members, before they become a member, gets a chance to review the OTA that DATC has with the government, as well as the CMA. Now, the CMA establishes the relationship between DATC and its members. And what I wanted to just convey to you is that it's important for a solicitation because the CMA contains terms and conditions that will become part of a project agreement when a member wins an award. So it's important for you to know the terms and conditions of the CMA. The CMA does, of course, contain a number of flow-downs from the OTA. So again, these are just items to be aware of as far as what's expected of our members, throughout your engagement with DATC. And lastly, with this, there are times that we do make changes to the OTA and the CMA. We do communicate those to our members, so it's important to be aware of those revisions as well. It's can be a vital part of what may be important to you as you're considering participating in a project. So that is the last slide that I have before I turn it over to Lauren, who is going to talk about solicitation responses. So at this point, Lauren, I am going to turn the slides over to you. I've given you the ball.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So I want to talk to you guys about what a solicitation response should look like when you're submitting a proposal or a white paper to DATC. So first we're going to go through the request for white papers. In general, you will not have more than 15 days to respond. This is a quick turnaround, but the exact time frame is indicated in each solicitations document, so just make sure to read it for the exact time frame. And the request for white papers will include a description of the project, what the anticipated period of performance is, and also what the anticipated funding is. And it will also include submission instructions. DATC will attach this cover page and instructions to help facilitate the white paper responses. So you will need to fill out this cover page with a lot of the administrative information. It wants to know your name, your NAICS code, project number, title, your point of contact, as well as if you're a small or not a small business or a non-traditional defense contractor. This is also the place for you to put your rough order of magnitude project costs, and it's broken down however the solicitation has it. In this case, it's by fiscal year. It'll also indicate at the bottom, let me see if I can get this. At the bottom here, it'll say how many pages it will be and the instructions for the rest of it. So, 11-point font, etc. Things that you're going to, just the administrative things that you're going to need to know about this. So, and then the next page will have what your white paper response should look like. Generally, these 10 things are used, and what we want to see in your response is, 1, general approach to the objective, and then a paragraph or however long it takes to do that. We want each of these items addressed. If one of them doesn't apply, put NA, but don't just leave it out. We're looking for each of these items when we do a compliance check on your white paper. From the white paper, the government will generally down select one or more members based on what was received in the white paper. And with those members, the government will negotiate the statement of work before the RFPP is released. So in between when the RWP and the RFPP is released, the government is talking to the member or member selected, trying to narrow down that statement of work and make it something that that each member can propose on. And then the RFPP is issued to the member with the finalized statement of work. Request for project proposals. So when the RFPP is released, like Steve said earlier, sometimes there's a white paper and it's a down selected to one or more members first. Sometimes it's just released right to the entire membership as an RFPP. So it can work both ways here. But this is a longer time frame. It will have typically no more than 30 days to respond, and if it's a down select, it might only be 15 days. But again, the exact time frame is noted in each of the RFPPs themselves. The RFPP will include, general information about the project, whether it's cost plus fixed fee or firm fixed price, what the anticipated period of performance is, when the award date is. It'll also give usually some more narrowed down pricing, like this is how much the government has to spend on this project. It'll include a statement of work. Like we said, it's been pretty finalized at this point, and it'll have a milestone payment schedule and all the points of contact for you at the government. It'll have what the security requirements are, if there's any government furnished property, what the expected data rights are, any export control, and then of course instructions on how to submit, which is what I am going to go over now. So there are typically several volumes of a proposal in response to an RFPP. Volume 1 is administrative, so that will typically include, this is typical, but it may vary from proposal or RFPP to RFPP. But generally they want some sort of data right acknowledgement. They tell you what they want, and you can concur or propose something in alternative. It'll want your compliance with 10 U.S. Code 2371B, which is the non-traditional defense contractor requirement. As with all OTAs, this requirement is that a significant participation by an NDC is required on each project. If the prime is not an NDC, then there needs to be significant participation by a subcontractor. Or if none of those exist, then at least 1/3 of the total cost is to be cost shared. So anyway, the RFPP admin volume wants you to state how you're going to meet this requirement. And it usually will also include an OCI certification. That is a form that's to be filled out. It's included with the RFPP that says there's no organizational conflicts of interest. Volume 2 of your proposal will be the price response, and there are 3 sections to this. The first is a cost summary form. This is where an Excel spreadsheet that will be provided to you with the RFPP that will basically detail all of your costs, and I'll go over this page by page with you so you understand how to get your costs in there correctly. Section 2 is a price narrative. So with all your costs, you'll need some backup documentation to justify these costs, and these all go into a price narrative. It's one document. It could be one Adobe file, all merged together, but generally it's all your quotes for things that were asked for in the cost summary form. And Section 3 is a milestone payment schedule. The government usually provides a milestone payment schedule with anticipated dates, and you fill in the costs in the cost column, and I will go over that with you as well. So here are the components of the cost summary form. Like I said, this is an Excel file. It will be provided to you with the RFPP, and it has multiple tabs. So it'll be broken up into materials, labor, indirect costs, etc. And those will all be the tabs, and I'm going to go over each one with you right now. So this is the direct materials tab. And as you can see, it's looking for a description of the material, vendor, basis of estimate, where you're referencing this in the proposal. So if it's widget number 1, you say, oh, it's used for this in the proposal, and you can put the section number of the proposal in there. It wants to know the unit cost and the number of units, and then everything else will calculate on its own. What the important thing is here is that all the instructions for backup documentation are included on each tab of the cost summary form. I just highlighted it with this box. Each tab will have this on it. And so in this case, with direct materials, it wants an itemized list of the materials proposed, and it must be included in this cost proposal. For each piece of proposed material with a unit cost greater or equal to $5,000 or a total cost of $25,000, they need a copy of the basis of cost documentation. So for this is a vendor quote, any past purchase orders. It could be an internet screenshot if this is something that could be purchased online. It doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to be, hey, this is where we got this cost from. This is why we're using this particular cost. It could be numerous different things, but that's what we're looking for here. And what you'll do is you'll fill out all this information in the cost summary form, and then in that cost volume that we talked about, you're going to put all those quotes as a PDF file and merge them all together. So I can't stress enough that you need to follow the instructions on this. The government will need this information, and it will delay award if you don't have it at the time of proposal submittal. So I'll move over to the next tab, which is direct labor. For this, they want to know the job category and title of each position. So you'll put in engineer 2 or something of that nature, and then how many hours and their rate. And it does give you options for different years and to change the rate with inflation and whatnot. In this case, the form instructions are if you're providing labor rates, you will need to submit either a DCA agreement that approves these rates. That's very rare for direct labor rates, or payroll records or some sort of substantiation for this is what we pay our people. They can be redacted. We don't need to know anyone's names or social security numbers, but a title and the hourly rate, or a title and whatever, it's a monthly rate we can divide, but it needs to have something that we can work from, like, okay, this is where they got their rate from. And like I said, I can't stress enough, this will delay award if this isn't given to us at the time of submittal. So, you have some time. This should be one of the first things you work on is when you get that RFPP, you send this to your payroll department, you send this to your finance department and tell them what you need. And we think we've made it fairly easy on each tab with the instructions right at the top of the tab. So if you have any questions, also feel free to contact DATC. We're here to help you on this. Indirect costs is the next tab. Again, the instructions are right on the top. Indirect costs are a little different. There's slightly more companies that have a government-approved indirect rates. So if you have that, send us your letter that you've received from the DCMA, DCAA, et cetera, and we will take that as justification for your rates. If you do not have that, we require other justifications. You'll need to include a detailed makeup of the indirect costs with expense pools, allocation basis, et cetera, and the previous 3 years of forecasted and actual indirect rates. So again, your finance department, they came up with this rate somehow to put in the spreadsheet, so they should have information to show how they got to that rate. Basically, if you're putting a number in here, we want to know where you got that number from. It's a general rule of thumb. So we'll move on to the next tab. Travel details. So this one, again, the form instructions are at the top. They want to know where you're going, how many people are going, days and nights, where you're traveling to and from, and then what the cost of all these are. So for lodging and meals and incidentals, you must use Gsa Approved Rates. You can go to gsa.gov and enter where you're traveling to, and it'll tell you what these approved rates are for lodging and meals and incidentals. With airfare, car rental, et cetera, you're getting the number from somewhere, so, you went to Travelocity, that's fine. Just screenshot your quote and include it in that cost volume, because if you don't and we ask you for it later, which we will, you're never going to be able to create that exact number again, just because of the fickle nature of airline pricing. So, so it's best to do it at the time and save everyone a little bit of a headache later on. So that's all I have on travel. Okay, so here is where you will put any team members or subcontractors. This one, the instructions are a little lengthy. Basically, they're grouped into two different groups. If you have subcontractors less than $150,000 or subs over $150,000. If they're less than $150,000, you need to provide some sort of quote, just like you did with direct materials, some sort of quote, what they're going to be doing, how much it's going to cost, and that should match up with what you put in the cost summary form. And then you will need to just write a statement that says that you've reviewed their costs and you think they're fair and reasonable. Now, if the team member is over $150,000, they will need to fill out their own cost summary form. This whole document that we're just talking about, they will need to do their own with the appropriate documentation as well. So it's really imperative in the beginning when you first get this RFP and you're looking for subs, if you think anyone's going to be over $150,000, you need to get this to them immediately because they need some time to fill this out. They don't appreciate being given this at the 11th hour and being told, hey, you need to fill out this big spreadsheet now with all your costs. If they're hesitant because they don't want to give the prime their their proprietary rates or whatnot, they are able to submit their information directly to DATC and bypass the prime. So we do accept proposals or cost summary forms and backup directly from the subs, so you can let them know that. But this is really important. So either way, whether they're over 150 or not, you will list them in this tab and list their total costs. And if they're over 150, you also will need to submit their cost summary form as well. Other direct costs are treated much like direct materials. Anything with a unit, except that it's anything with a unit cost greater than or equal to $25,000 will need some documentation. So a little less documentation here. But they're for things like meetings and conferences, rental and lease on special equipment, printing and publications, etc. So this is where those things will go. They're direct costs for the project. They don't really fit anywhere else. They go in this ODC tab. Cost of money. So the rule of thumb is if you don't know what cost of money is, you don't have it. It is generally only something that companies that have approved rates with the DCMA or DCAA have. So if you have an approved rate, your finance department will know. You can put that in here. If not, just skip this tab entirely. This royalties and license fee section is if you are using some sort of software that requires you to pay a license fee for every time you use it or whatever. So, so that's where this cost will go in. In this case, we would require a copy of the license agreement, some sort of documentation like you have to pay this to somebody. Well, where does it say that? And, make sure it matches what you've submitted. And here is where you are going to put your fixed fee and profit. So this is important. So when I do a cost analysis for DATC projects, we use the weighted guidelines, as it's saying here, to determine if the rate is fair and reasonable. So oftentimes what happens is you will submit a rate. The government may or may not decide that that rate is fair and reasonable. They may counter it. They may accept it. But your profit rate is evaluated based on, the risk of the project, whether it's firm fixed price or CPFF. If you go, I believe on the DATC website, there will be some information on the weighted guidelines and how we evaluate the fee so that you can kind of get a sense of what we're looking for, and you can see if your fee is within the range of acceptable fees. So that's important to note because we do look at it and we do evaluate that. So all those tabs will then populate into this general tab for the cost summary form. You can see, it has a little section for direct materials, direct labor, indirects, and it goes on to the bottom with all the information, and then it will total everything for you. So you don't have to worry about this form. You only need to fill out the items in yellow at the top. It's going to want you to determine or if it's specified in the RFPP, you put in the contract type and what the period performance is, et cetera. So this is all like kind of administrative stuff at the top, but we do need to know it, and it's important for the proposal. But the rest of this tab will populate itself based on the rest of the cost summary form. So we moved on to the components of the cost/price narrative. So all those things that I talked about, all the documentation, all the quotes you need, all that stuff goes into this cost narrative. Like I said before, it's a PDF file. It's however you want to make it. I've seen zip files where you just put all the quotes in and send us a zip file. That's acceptable as well. Just the more information, the better. We can't stress that enough. So this is where you'll put things like your payroll records, redacted, of course, your DCMA letters, any material, subcontractor, or travel quotes. That's where your Expedia screenshot goes. Any license agreements, if you have any for any software, and you can write a narrative in here. You know, if you don't have a document that supports your, hey, you didn't hire this person yet, so I don't have a payroll record, but hey, we went to salary.com and looked at this, and you know, you can write something to that effect. That's fine. We just want to know where it came from. So whatever you can give us is more helpful than nothing. But the rule of thumb is each cost must be substantiated in the cost narrative. It's really important. Like I said, we tried to make it easy by putting all the instructions directly on the cost summary form so you can see at each step of the way what you need on each tab to substantiate your costs. You know, it's just of utmost importance that we get this information in a timely fashion. The next part of the cost proposal is a milestone payment schedule. This is a sample one of what one looks like. This is what the government provided. You can see they filled out the milestones, the deliverables, and the due date, and your job is to fill out how much each milestone is going to cost them. This is a way for the government to, if they're incrementally funding a project, know how much they're going to need each year. You know, if you're going to spend this really quickly, or if it's a backloaded spend, you know, it just gives them an idea of how much funding they need in what fiscal year and when. You'll notice at the bottom here, there is a submission of inventions report, and I'm going to go over that in the next slide. It's a Dd882 form, and we'll talk about that right now. So the Dd882 form is a report of inventions. In the OTA that DATC has with the government, it says that the Dd882 shall be included as a fixed price payable milestone in all project agreements awarded under this agreement, and shall be valued at no less than 5% of the total project agreement value. So I'm just going to back up here for a second. In this milestone payment schedule, this needs to equal 5% of your total cost. And I'll come back here for a second. It is not reflected in the cost summary form, only in the milestone payment schedule. So you're not adding this as like an other direct cost or anything. We don't want to see that anywhere. This is not an extra charge, but it's a withhold, and it can be invoiced for a report as the report is submitted quarterly. So these are quarterly reports that are due, and basically to make sure that you do them, there was a 5% withhold of the total project. So a portion can be billed in some cases each quarter, but like I said, we don't want to see this in the cost summary form. It's a withhold, it's not an extra charge. We also have some unallowable expenses that are never allowed on any government projects, any PR spending, lobbying, alcohol, interest debts, political contributions, any advertising, penalties, or entertainment. Never in any government project are any of these costs allowed, so don't include them in this one. We have a little bit of a synopsis here. Any tips for success? So, you know, review that project pipeline for projects that are of interest to your company. That'll get you, kind of give you a head start on what to look for. Read the entire solicitation, cover to cover. It's super important. That way you know what they're asking for. You know, you have all the instructions there. And we cannot stress this enough. Follow the instructions. You know, most of the problems that we have with non-compliant proposals are just ones that didn't follow the instructions. So, I mean, it's simple, but it's super important. Ask questions before the deadline. DATC gives you a opportunity to ask questions, but only up until a certain point, and then it's closed, and they need to have some sort of lead time to get those questions to the government to answer. So get them in as soon as possible. And then also submit all backup documentations in the cost narrative. Do it at the time of proposal submittal. We will ask you for it. We promise you that. So just make sure you have all that information in. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to this and hope that you can create some good proposals. Steve, do you have anything else you want to add?
Great. Thanks, Lauren. I'm just going to take the presenter ball back really quick. Great information. That is essentially what we wanted to communicate today. I did want to say if you're listening to this session, following the pointers presented here and understanding this process is going to take you a long way. We look forward to some great proposals from our members. You do understand, there may be additional questions, and at any time, please contact DATC. I've included my information here. If you have any questions, you can contact me. But that's all I had. So at this point, that is going to conclude the session. Thanks, everyone.